Hello everyone, and welcome back to a very sunny week, hopefully, in London. This week apparently is meant to be really lovely weather, so what I thought we'd do is come outside and talk about something that we don't really talk about on this channel, and that is the garden transformation. Over the past year, I've been sharing the transformation of basically every single room in the house, the befores and afters of when we bought the house to what it looks like now. And one thing I've never done is talk about the garden. So I thought today's video, we can dedicate some time to show you what the garden looked like when we bought the house to what it looks like now. This garden is by no means finished, but the structure and the bones are there. So what we're going to do is we're going to rewind 3 years, show you what this garden looked like when we first bought the house, and then show you the design process of how I designed it, what I wanted it to look like, and pretty much talk through the whole thing. So you guys can refer back to it in this one video. I get asked a lot of questions about sourcing furniture, the tiles, the plants themselves, so everything is going to be linked down below, and hopefully this answers most of your questions. As you can see, when we bought this house, we actually had a conservatory. This thing was absolutely huge. It was really badly made and it took up over half the space of the garden. One of the main issues we had is the ground level. I don't know if you can pick up from these images, but the tile outside was around a foot higher than the ground level, both in the house and the conservatory, which was causing an issue of damp on the external wall at the back of the house. So the first thing we did was remove all of these tiles from the back garden. Chad actually did this part himself. He was working from home, whereas I was in an office. So when he could get away from his job, he was taking all of these tiles up and then putting them in a skip that we had at the front of the house. Then we hired a demolition company who completely demolished our conservatory and took away all of its remnants and even the rubble and the concrete that was below the tile. With everything now out of the garden, it was finally time to design it. And I started in quite an unconventional way. I decided I wanted to plant some plants to see what the actual layout of the garden would look like. I clearly wasn't going to keep the garden looking like this, but it really helped me to visualize the space. I've always really loved the formality of an Italian garden, but then I do love English gardens and cottage gardens and how wild they can look. So my goal was to somehow combine the two. I drew up this really simplistic vision for what I wanted the garden to look like. I knew that I wanted 2 patios, one by the back door and then one at the end of the garden, and then a circle in the middle to put an urn, and then a walkway connecting everything. So obviously we live in a Victorian terraced house in London, and when I was choosing the tiles for the garden, I wanted the tiles to feel at home and sort of like they blended into the surroundings. So I knew I wanted to go for a cobblestone, and I actually chose this grey tumbled limestone from a company called Cornstone. Trust me when I say I had ordered so many different samples of different coloured limestones, terracottas, I think I had some marbles maybe in there, but these to me felt so much more appropriate for a London garden, and so we went with these. Before the tiles had arrived, we used our landscapers to completely level the garden, and it's actually on a gradient, so all the water slopes towards our drain. But as you can see here, everything is marked out from our instruction, and what you're looking at now is the hardcore that goes underneath the limestone. Once the hardcore was down, it was then time to lay the tile, and then after that it just needed to be grouted. This all came together within the space of a few days. The only thing left after all of the hard landscaping was to add some plants. 3.5 years later, this is what our garden looks like now. And there we have it. That is the whole garden transformation from the very start up until now. There are a few things we still need to change, like the fences, probably some plants, I'm not too sure, but we will get there. Whether it takes a few months or a few years, we will eventually get there. But I hope you like it. Hopefully I've answered all your questions. If you do have any others, please leave them below. But I think I've covered most of it. It's definitely one of my favourite spaces in the house, especially when the weather is as it is now. You'll know that we don't really get that much sunny weather here in the UK, so when we do get it, we really do make the most of it. And for the past few mornings, I've been going out with my coffee and my book and just taking 5 to 10 minutes just to chill before my day starts. And something else I've really been enjoying during that morning ritual, if you'd like to call it, is my FAQ 202 by Foreo, which is the new generation LED mask from Foreo, and it's absolutely incredible. But before I get to talk to you about that, I wanted just to really quickly share something that I've never shared before. And I think when I talk about skincare, it will give you more of an understanding as to my viewpoint from skincare. But when I was 15, from the age of 15 to around 2021, I had really severe acne. And I'm not talking about a few spots, I'm talking about clinical acne. I was given countless different medicines, I was given ointments, tretinoins, creams, every single thing my GP could prescribe for me. But for 5 years, it didn't work until my GP referred me to a dermatologist, where they gave me something called Roaccutane, or commonly known as Accutane, which is basically a drug that stops your spots completely. It stops your body creating oils, so therefore you never create spots. And I have to say, from when I've had it to now, I've never had acne ever again. Obviously, everyone is human, you get the odd spot here and there. But the one thing that I did get from acne is scarring. And this is something I don't really talk about because I'm quite conscious about it. But my acne scarring used to be really severe, and it's something I'm really conscious about. And the one thing that I love about this mask, it uses 8 different wavelengths, including NIR, which stands for near infrared, which tackles fine lines, wrinkles, and redness. So for me, this is what I love about this mask. It helps with my acne scarring. Since using this, my skin feels healthier, it feels brighter, it feels smoother. And as someone who's had really severe acne and a skin condition, I know what it's like when people recommend things that don't work. And I would never recommend something that I personally didn't see a difference in using. And all I have to say is that I have been using this secretly for a while, and I absolutely love it. You should always use this on clean skin. So I've been doing this in the morning, as soon as I have a shower. One of the things that I love as well is you can also get a Manuka honey primer. I've been popping this on my skin in the morning before I pop on my mask. It makes my little ritual feel more luxurious and like I'm in a spa. In terms of how you use it, all you have to do is pop it over your face, and there's a power button on the front here that you press. When you first get your mask, you just quickly unlock it through the FAQ Swiss app, and then you can either use the preloaded treatments that are on there, or you can use the mask by itself. I like to use the 15-minute anti-wrinkle treatment. I'm turning 27 very soon. I'm conscious I'm aging. As someone who had acne, I'm very conscious of my skin. I don't wear makeup, so I want my skin to look its best. I think if something's proven to tackle fine lines and aging and redness and all these different things, then why not use it? If you'd like to check out the FAQ 202 and other Foreo bestsellers, then you can either click the link in my description or use code ASH30 for an incredible 30% off all Foreo products. And the most incredible thing is that the code is stackable, so you can also use it on sale items too. Thank you so much to Foreo for sponsoring today's video. Welcome back to the kitchen. As you can see now, the plaster is completely dry. So what I'm probably going to do either in this video or the next video is, when you first have your walls plastered, you have to apply sort of like a silicone paint to it so that it gets absorbed into the wall rather than your paint does. Because if you try and paint on top of plaster, you basically have to give it like 10 coats because it's just all getting absorbed into the wall. So I can't remember the brand of like silicone stuff that we use, but I'm gonna have to go pick some up, and then we're gonna have to paint this wall obviously the same colour as the kitchen. I did say in the last video, I am debating whether to change this colour. So when I go and pick up that plaster paint, I will probably pick up some samples as well and see what colours go with the red kitchen. But yeah, that's something to do either in this video or probably next week. But we've just received the delivery of our big brass pole. And this we bought from Devol. So I'm just gonna get this open now. So it comes in this really long tube. I'm assuming it comes in parts. Nowhere sells 3.6 meters worth of brass poling. So it comes in parts. Jesus, it's really heavy. Let's see if I can extend. So These are the brass poles. So there are 3 separate poles. So let's get one of these open. So I don't know if you can see this. Let me try and get the finish on camera. But this, I believe, is an unlacquered brass. So I'm trying to select brass that will age and tarnish quite nicely. But if you can imagine, this is going to run all the way across the kitchen. And then it also comes, I think it said 15 S hooks. So hanging from these will be pots and pans and other kitchen utensils that we have yet to find. Some we have yet to find. And then to support them, they come with these tiny little brass brackets, and these will be the supports that obviously run along the wall. I'm not sure how many of these we have, but I think this must be a 3-meter run then. I will leave a link below. I think Decor is actually the cheapest option online that we found. I did find someone on Etsy who also sells brass poles, but they were coming to around £400, whereas this was, I think, £190, which is still very expensive, but it's something that's not really going to go. And if you move house, technically you could take it with you, depending on what you want to do with it, but I think it's a worthy investment. I'm probably going to pop all of these back into that tube, and then I mentioned last week the tiles aren't coming for a while. Chad got the confirmation email today saying it probably will be an 8 to 10 week lead time, so this is going to be stored somewhere in the house, and then once the tile is on the wall, we actually still need to find a tiler, but once the tile is on the wall, we can then take this out and pop it on the wall too. Just because I'm impatient, I'm actually going to make this now and show you what it will look like. But basically, I've just opened a few more off camera, and they come with these little inserts that you pop between the 2 brass poles. So as we can't do the kitchen renovation just yet, and for the next couple of months, let's just give this a little go so you guys can see the inspo. Oh, Chad, I might need your help to hold this up. Thank you. So if you can see, there's a joining part in the middle. I'm not sure if you'd cover that with that, or whether you do that halfway between.
I think you cover it, the point of it is you cover the, yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Can you hold it there though? Just don't put it in and out. There you go. And then we'll make Chad exercise for a minute whilst I just find the end pieces. And then if you can see, I'll just show you these end parts. So the finials, I think these are called possibly, but these are how the rails are finished on the ends. Let it go in the middle now. There you go, sort of, so you guys can kind of see.
Oh,
don't let it go, Jesus Christ.
let me hold it. Take that off. Let me hold it. Go get a brass pan.
That's not going to support it.
No, just so you can show it.
And then obviously these are just some copper pans we have in the cupboards, and the idea is that going to...
Yeah. Oh my god, this is a workout.
The idea, obviously this is a very small one, but the idea is we're going to have lots of bits and bobs hanging down from this. You're going to drop that, so let me take it off now.
Yeah.
Pull that out, slowly.
That looks really nice though.
It might not come across on camera that well.
I think it will.
But it looks really lovely. So
and
now
we have lots of different
we have
types.
Lots of pots and pans.
Let me squeeze under.
I think we're also going to have like garlic, onions, lots of like veg and produce always on display. I might have to try and get some fake ones just so they don't go off all the time.
And just because too much copper can be a bit...
I'm not really the biggest fan of copper, yeah.
But these are solid brass.
These don't have, the issue with these ones is they don't have like holes in them, so we're either going to have to
drill one.
But these sort of more so match. Yeah.
So it's a nice mix of copper and brass.
Nice.
And then we'll separate that with, like you said, like
produce,
bunches of onions. And
yeah, maybe some flowers or something, I don't know. I will just mention as well, because I know someone's going to comment, as they did last week, we are not part of a missionary. We both have similar shirts.
Yeah, I'm not in the camera though.
They can see you though. But someone mentioned last week, that we wear each other's clothes. And whilst that may be true for some clothes, we just basically have the same taste in shirts. So we have linen shirts from Charles Tyrrett.
Yeah.
I'll always link them below now, going forward, because people keep asking where they're from. But yeah, just wanted to point out, I don't share Chad's shirts.
We're two very different sizes.
Yes, we are very different sizes.
Ash has school, back to school, Tesco special.
And Chad has
Extra large.
extra large. So dinner tonight, after a long day in the garden, I think I'm going to cook from, believe it or not, we actually do cook from someone that's not a Selenki. This is Alison Roman's Nothing Fancy, and she has a really lovely coconut braised chicken with chickpeas and lime. It's kind of like a brothy stew, but it's really healthy. We don't have anything with it. It's just literally chicken. We use chicken legs actually. Chicken legs in like a sauce with chickpeas. It's really lovely. You stick it on the hob. I pop the oil in here already. You literally just season your chicken with some salt and pepper, and you add in all the ingredients and just cover it. It's really quite simple. Right, hello everyone and welcome back to the garden. We're going to do a few questions and answers because I asked on my Instagram the other day if you had any burning questions for the garden transformation, and I got quite a few. So I thought what we do is we sit outside because it's nice weather. I'll invite Chad in because Chad is...
I am YouTube extraordinary, gardener extraordinary.
But also I will say you were the one who was dealing mostly with the garden, like landscapers, because you were working from home, whereas I just sort of found everything online.
Yeah.
Basically, Chad...
What I've realised, Ash is really good at picking things. He's not good at maintaining
everything
them.
after.
So Ash is very good at finding things and ordering them, but I'm the one that has to look after them. But I think it's a good dynamic, because now I used to hate anything gardening. Like I wouldn't plant, I wouldn't prune, I wouldn't water, and I don't know if it's an age thing, but now I'm obsessed. So yeah, I think we've got the right mix.
I order, you maintain.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it does look very good from your maintenance. The roses over here, I'll show you in a second, but they look brilliant. But onto the questions. I'm going to start with one that I've got quite a lot of the same question. It's all about maintenance. So how much maintenance do you do on a weekly basis, or like low maintenance options? As Chad is a maintenance man, I think this is a question for you.
I wouldn't say we have many low maintenance. I think the reality is if you want a really nice, like full garden, you can't have low maintenance things, because most of the things that are the most incredible require maintenance.
Yeah.
Yes, you can get things like buxus balls, yew balls, even jasmine to an extent, which are fairly low maintenance. But when it comes to, wisteria, roses, what else?
Everything. I was saying to Chad, we were having this discussion.
Pretty much. Oh, hydrangeas.
Hydrangeas are...
All of these things need regular watering, regular feeding, regular pruning, but it's so worth it.
Yeah.
So I would say we're not low maintenance people. Our garden is the opposite, but I would say that at least 3 times a week I'm in the garden, and that's either a mix of deadheading, pruning, watering, feeding, or just shaping as well. There's things like we have borders like lavender and stuff, and it grows really wild, so you need to like shape it. But yeah, I'd say realistically about 2 to 3 times a week, about an hour each time.
Or like 15 minutes a day, maybe, something.
Yeah.
Like you can do, but basically, we were having this discussion this morning, is what I was going to say. There is no such thing as no maintenance. No. So like every plant has a degree of, you need to do something with it. You have to water it, you have to cut it back. You can't just leave something completely as it is. You have to maintain everything, basically.
But can I just say, it's like, don't strive for that, because, there's a lot of gardens, especially in London, where people don't have a lot of time. They're working, they're busy, and therefore they go for very low maintenance gardens. And usually what that is just slabs and tiled front gardens with maybe a pot or 2.
Yeah.
And I just think one thing we're missing is just really nice green flowery gardens. So even if you think you are a low maintenance person, I'd encourage you just to step out your comfort zone. It's good for bees, it's good for the frontage of your house, it looks better on the street.
It's also good for your mental health. I think spending some time outside and in nature, as silly as it is, like whether you're cutting some leaves off something, we've got the hands in the dirt, or it's just good for your mental health.
There's a thing called, you might know, called blue zones. It's these areas of Europe where people live the longest and the healthiest. I think it's kind of touches into Greece, Italy, it's all the Mediterranean. And they look at a lot of these people as to why they live so long and healthy, even though they drink a lot, they smoke. And diet is one. One of the second things they've attributed it to is gardening. The fact that they are frequently on their knees, being active, out in the sun, in the dirt. It's genuinely good for your sort of physical health, but also your mental as well. Like for me, if I'm having a stressful morning of work, I spend my lunchtime in the garden and I come back completely revitalized after it.
First of all, where did you get your outdoor furniture from? This furniture here, the metal with like the cushions, is from Dahl's. This is like an antique table. Stones are from cornstone, limestone cobbles.
Yeah.
I've already talked about it in the video, but I will leave everything linked below. The urn I get asked all the time in the middle is actually from Dobby's, which is just like a UK garden centre. It's a concrete resin. I don't even think it's concrete.
It's resin, yeah.
Yeah, but you can, what I'm aiming to do is get like a really lovely Victorian cast iron pot for the middle of the circle. You can find them anywhere really, any garden centre. So
you get them online, Facebook Marketplace, there's loads.
Yeah.
I should say this furniture that Ash found outside, we were originally looking at, I think it was Neptune.
Neptune, yeah.
And it was up for something like
£3,000.
£3,000. And we found this on Dahl's. They're replicas.
Same.
Exactly the same. And credit to Ash, he found it. But also, these have been out in the winter. We didn't cover them. They weren't, and not a single bit of rust.
No, they're incredible.
Nothing.
And they cost £500, these ones?
£500. So if you love this sort of style, please do not waste your money on Neptune.
The only thing that is different is the cushions, but I think the fabric on the Neptune one is a bit more expensive and it's waterproof, whereas this isn't waterproof. It's water resistant, but we just take our cushions in. That's another question. What do you do with your cushions? We store our cushions inside, but these cushions are really lovely. Everything's really comfortable.
Yeah, we just put them in the loft. We don't have a lot of storage in the garden per se, so basically anything that we use for the summer that has to go in over winter, we just put in the loft.
Yeah. Okay, people want run through of plants and how do you decide where they go in the border. I will start this by saying I have so many plants I absolutely adore, but I think my one weakness is I don't plan, or I didn't plan.
You don't plan?
No. So basically you're meant to start in order of height, so everything should look like it's going upwards. So you start with the smaller plants first and then you work your way up in terms of height. One thing that I didn't do when we started the garden was consider how big the original plant would get when you're buying them as young plants. So I'd say my biggest piece of advice is, even though you're buying a small plant, plan the borders for the eventual size of the plant, not what you've got at the time. Because I used to put in 5 of the same plant and expect them all to grow and not compete with each other.
Or we'd put down like a big hydrangea that grows massively into a huge shrub, and that would overshadow and end up killing plants on front. So I think, remember, you've got beginning of border, then you've got middle, and then you've got back of border, and it should go from small, medium, and large in height. And then just take into account, in terms of the spacing of plants, how big something gets when it's fully mature. Because, okay, your garden might look a little bit patchy to begin with, but it will grow into it.
Yeah. In terms of the actual plants in the garden, we have, basically, there are roses, hydrangeas, lavender, and
Verbena
bonariensis, jasmine,
wisteria.
I thought I was going to summarize it in like 5 plants, but there is quite a lot. But it's
white daisies,
the Erigeron carvinskianus, I think.
The French ones.
French ones?
Yeah, the daisies.
Erigeron,
marguerites.
I might do a blog post on the types of foxgloves we have.
I've got white foxgloves are going to come out. We've also got purple ones.
Alliums. But what I would say is the main structure of the garden. So we have our evergreen things that give all year interest. So we have our yew balls and we have our bay trees and our holly trees at the back. Yeah. Lavender is technically semi-evergreen because it keeps a bit of its greenery over the winter, but it's not very pretty. Rosemary. And then we have the rosemaries. And then what you do is you have your base and structure for your garden.
Yeah.
And then you have things that come out at different times of the year. So you want something called succession. So one thing stops flowering, the other thing starts flowering. So you constantly have this flow of ever flowering plants in your garden. So we have alliums that come out at different times. So we have our first flush, we then have a second flush. Whilst the alliums are then coming out, the foxgloves are starting to grow. And then once the foxgloves are growing, the roses have started to come in, and the lavender. So you have to think about
everything's about a 2-3 week period from each other. So we'll typically have 2 or 3 flowers or plants flowering in May, and then we'll have another 2-3 come out in June and then July. But then we also have ones that flower all throughout summer. So they'll start in May, June, and flower until late autumn as well. So I think really this is the important thing about researching the plants and the flowers you put in, so that you can really think about the flowering times and making sure. The other thing I'd mention is your color scheme. Really think about what color scheme. There's nothing worse, in my opinion, than a garden that is just full of 10 colors and it
really bright colors that don't go together.
They don't go together. It doesn't look right. It's very much a sort of grandma style. Whereas for us, we've gone for a purple and white with a little bit of pink in there as well. But we haven't deviated. You won't find any yellow. You won't find any orange. You won't find.
You can have different variations of one color. So we have Olivia Rose Austin, David Austin roses, which are like a lighter pink, and then on the other side we have like a deeper pink color. The alliums are all deep purples, but then the roses we have whites, and they are slightly creamier whites. So everything is purple, whites, and pink in this garden. But I'd say you need a mixture of like 2 or 3 colors to make it look.
I think 3 is the right spot. I think sometimes if it's just 2, looks a bit too samey. So I think we've been quite clever in making sure that some of our roses are pink. Which again, lots of flowers, they flower for a long time, and it just gives a bit more of a balance. Another one we have here is which vegetables are you growing and why? I think we've sort of mentioned that we are again, granted we don't have a lot of space, but we're trying to make the most of growing some of the most like frequent veg we buy week after week, and also all of our herbs and things like that as well. So I think on the herb side, we've got 2 giant pots of rosemary. We've not bought rosemary in about 6 months, and we use it a lot, but these just keep growing and growing. We also have our mint. We eat a lot of mint. We drink a lot of peppermint tea, and instead of buying tea bags now, which are, £5 a box, we now just put fresh mint in. We also have sage, we have oregano, basically all the main ones we use cooking day in, day out, we now grow and are fully self-sufficient. And then in the side alley, we have our bathtubs where we're growing actual vegetables. And you've put a few things in there.
I've got some courgettes. I've got 2 different types. I've got a yellow and like a normal courgette. And then I've got some French beans and some runner beans. And then I've also got...
cucumber?
I planted a cucumber, but it didn't do very well. So the cucumber's now gone. It's deceased. But then we have, did you say tomatoes?
Oh, no. My tomatoes, which I think I've bored you all the last 3 episodes, but they're now really starting to take off.
Flesh out,
And we've got 5 pots of tomatoes. So
we're going to have tomatoes.
We're going to have a lot of tomatoes this summer. But again, the thing is now we're saving on our shopping bill because all of our herbs and most of the veg we consume, we're growing ourselves. So yeah, we're going to keep that up. But again, we are quite limited on space. So
this was also what I was going to say, sorry, about the garden design. When people ask about how to design a garden, have we touched on that yet? I don't know if we have. But I say because we have quite a small garden, you have to think about things. If you wanted to do veg, you can, but you have to prioritize what means the most to you. So if you want to grow veg, grow lots of veg. If you want to grow lots of roses, grow lots of roses, but don't try and do too many things in one space. So what I'd probably do next time is have more space for veg.
See, I disagree.
I don't. I think you can do something really interesting without taking all of the plants out and then having everything as like ornamental veggies.
Do you know why I disagree? I think it's because
veggies.
We live in a small London house. And I think it's a bit silly to think, that's an ideal location to start growing lots of veg.
Like a little farm.
I think I'd rather have a nice, beautiful, flowery garden.
Yeah, true.
Because let's be honest, veg gardens don't look nice. No. They don't. Very few. I mean, some of the ones in Italy and things do, but generally speaking, if you look at an allotment or someone's veg, it's just beds with leaves. So I think we've done the right thing. We've primarily focused on the garden and flowers, and we've now been able to integrate, quite clever, via pots and bathtubs, bits of veg and herbs. So I think we've got the right balance. Where if this was all or majority veg,
it would look a bit weird, and it wouldn't really serve.
It wouldn't look very nice.
No.
It certainly wouldn't be going viral on Instagram, I don't think. So.
Cost of the whole project. Let's set realistic expectations on budget.
That's a very good question.
But something we always talk about, though, obviously you're going to talk about the budgets and everything because that's your forte. Yeah. But we always talk about you don't have to spend a lot to make it look expensive. We have spent a fair bit on plants because we made quite a few mistakes. That's basically on me. But the actual bones of the garden. Sorry, we keep having to stop this because my camera keeps overheating. So, budget. What was I saying? I was saying, yeah, we made a lot of mistakes because we had to replace a lot of plants due to my poor planning. But other than that, you don't have to spend a lot of money to get a nice garden.
No.
Hand over to you.
No, it's a complete myth. Plants are ridiculously cheap. You just have to get it right the first time and look after them to keep it cheap.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't get it right, you're constantly having to then replace, buy more. And of course, if you don't look after them. I think the other thing to mention as well is there's smart things you can do to save money, right? Like take seedlings and things.
Yeah.
Take cut-offs. So maybe you've only got one hydrangea and you want to have 4, just take some cuts and then you can make yourself 4. Yeah. So what I would say is actually just planting things like flowers and plants is quite, can be quite unaffordable. Quite affordable, sorry. As they, can range from 5 to 10 to 15 pounds. I think where the cost really comes with a garden is usually the flooring,
landscaping.
So the landscaping, putting down the tiles, fencing around your garden. We've sort of kept the fencing we had, and we need to change that. But also things like we had a conservatory and a back door. So for us, it wasn't just making a garden look nice. We had to completely overhaul the garden. So yeah, I think budget-wise, if you're doing what we've done and you're starting from scratch and you have to completely renovate a garden, you're probably looking on the cheaper end, sort of around 5k, on the more expensive end 10k. But there are people who spend lots more than that.
4 times that.
We've kept ours quite traditional, quite humble.
Yeah, I will say it depends on, another question I get asked quite a lot is how does your garden look so mature for such a young garden? And I would say it's because we've bought more mature plants. So these 3 holly trees at the back, when we bought them, they were 15 feet holly trees, and each of them cost around £500 each, which is quite expensive for a tree.
Our wisteria on the front of the house, like a lot of people say, wow, it's so big.
Yeah.
It's because we bought it for about £350 because it was already so mature. So I'm a big believer in just spend a bit more and get something more mature because you'll see immediate results. Whereas if you buy something really small and plant it, you're waiting 2-3 years for it to get to a good size. It's similar with the hydrangeas we have on the front and the back. They're huge because we got 20-30 litre pot size ones, which are more, I would say a normal small Annabelle hydrangea is £20?
You can get them from 15, £25. Yeah.
But if you go for the bigger ones like we did, you are going to spend sort of 60 to 80. But is it worth it to get a plant that's already been growing for 2-3 years? 100%.
Yeah. And as you said, you can take cuttings from those plants and create more plants. So there is a benefit to buying a bigger plant. You can take more cuttings and it doesn't look as bad as taking cuttings from a smaller plant, for example.
Yeah.
Why the layout, and why is this down this end and not next to the back of the house? I think commonly with house renovations, you do see a dining table and a table outside the back of the house, but our garden is north facing. So where we're sat now is where the sun is all day long. So another thing when designing a garden, you have to plan where the light is. I think most people would probably want to eat in the sun. Obviously, some people would want to eat in the shade, but I think I'd want the option to shade it. So what I would do, if we could redo this, is have this seating area and an eating area down here, but then maybe a nice sort of parasol or something to cover. But the reason that this is down this end is because this is where all of the sun is throughout the day.
I think it's twofold as well, right? I think that is true for sure if this is where the sun is, but we also want, when we're sort of entertaining or if we're having people around, I always wanted the idea of them having to walk through a bit of a garden to get to where we wanted to eat. So it's not like you just open the door and there's a table there. They kind of have to walk through the path, go around the circle, come here. So it's a nice little entry level.
We actually did debate on the garden design. Can you remember when I planned it all out using the mud? I think I would have shown you the images a minute ago, but I had this walkway of like a zigzag going through because I wanted you to have to like pass through hedges and like lavender plants
I
and
still
trees.
wonder if that was the right call.
Yeah, but it would have been a really interesting. There was a garden design. I think Bunny Mellon, is it Bunny Mellon, who did a YouTube video with one of her clients on YouTube, and they have a similar garden to that layout. And I just love the idea of like pushing past the plants, and you like have to discover more things because at the end of the day, a garden is another room, and you have to design it as you would a room, and it's just different points of interest.
Yeah. And I've just always liked the idea of like little, there used to be a book when I was a kid, I think called The Secret Garden. And I just love the idea of like having to go down little paths into a maze, all this kind of stuff. So whenever I see a garden that's just big and open plan, it's not my style because you can just see everything at a glance. But if you kind of have to go off on a little bit of an adventure and sort of find your way around the garden,
it's a lot more interesting. Yeah. Okay, the next one is do's and don'ts garden design. I have quite a few do's and I have quite a few don'ts. I'd say my don'ts are trying not to use anything that's unnatural. So no astroturfs. I don't really like a whole paved garden. I know some people have to because they have courtyards and it makes more sense. But I think if you have the option to have plants and borders, I think obviously that's going to look nicer.
100%.
But I'd say my biggest thing is, oh, look, a butterfly.
Oh.
I'd say welcome all the insects and the bugs into your garden because it really does help the planet.
So are we doing like an ick each? So yours is
design icks,
yours is like fake stuff.
Fake stuff, astroturfs and tarmacs and that sort of stuff.
1000% agree. Like, why have fake when you can have real? I would say one for me.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Is palm trees.
Oh, well, that wasn't what I thought.
I've got more.
Okay.
I have to be careful because every time I give my opinion, I get cancelled. But
I know what you mean, though. Palm trees.
Like, I don't want to see. Like, you live in the UK. Stop trying to pretend you live in Beverly Hills. So having like big wild palm trees and other sort of just really plants that are just so obscure in this
like
climate.
Big banana leaf plants.
It doesn't look good. It's not the right climate. They're meant to be in the Caribbean and in the Americas. They're not meant to be in Northern Europe. So yeah, I would say things like that.
Yeah, I get that. That makes sense.
What did you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going to say hot tubs.
No, but
I thought you were going to say, because normally what you get is an astroturfed garden with like a gazebo. What they called? A pergola with like a hot tub underneath it. I thought you were going to say that.
I mean, each
with some Philips Hue lights.
I don't. It's not. It's not my style per se.
Yeah, I think that's another thing. I think.
Oh, your turn. So I did one. Let's keep going. I need to think.
Okay, design X. I have one. I get a lot of comments about lawns, and I think we don't have a lawn, obviously, but everyone seems to hate the fact we don't have a lawn, and I think lawns can be quite boring. Controversial opinion. I think they can look lovely if you have the option to have a lawn as a part of a bigger garden and have an area of lawning. Yeah. But I think A, it's not very good for pollinators. B, it just doesn't look very interesting. And C, fine well the 99.9% of people that have a lawn on this channel watching this right now has patches in their grass. Yeah. It's just hard to maintain. 100%. So I think
if you've got a really big garden and you can have a section of it that's lawn based with like wildflowers and things, it's stunning. But just please remember, our garden is about
I don't even know how big it is.
40 meters, maybe. We're not gonna. Space is precious, and we didn't really have any space to have sort of lawn. And I don't want to be sat there sprinkling stuff on it all the time. And
I wouldn't say it's an ick of mine, but I just think lawns aren't everything. And I think you could have something different, like clovers. You can have. There's so many different things you can do, and I think lawns are probably the least interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Design ick for Chad.
I think, like. The floodlights that come out of the ground. I think it's good to have lighting in a garden. We want it. We're not thinking about having lighting on the trees that go up, but you see those houses in like Essex and places that are just like McMansions. That's what they're called, right? Just the really modern houses, and the back gardens are just like render with like light strobes running underneath them and stuff. And it's really modern, and each to their own if you like that. But I just not a fan of that. Sometimes it looks like one of those amphitheaters in an all-inclusive hotel. When you go abroad and it's like rendered walls everywhere and lights and strobes on the paths. And
I wouldn't want to spend a lot of time in like a flood-lit space. No. I feel like soft lighting in interiors as well. We don't use our spotlights. It's the same thing.
And more of like a traditional design. I'd love to have like old sort of lantern styles, things that look aesthetically nice to look at. And most of those modern lights just look like they belong in a nightclub, like on the roof.
Maybe if you turn them on to water your plants and like clean everything, fine. I don't know. I feel like we should stop our interior design because I feel like we're going to get cancelled.
Yeah. What's some of our pluses though? So I think X is good. I think flip it on its head. Like things we don't have but we'd love to have. Like for me, I don't think a pergola is the right word, but I see a lot more gardens that really have like nice little arches over their pathways, or they have pergolas and they have wisterias and climbing roses going up. I think, not here, but in our Italy house, you want to eat in the shade. I could definitely put a pergola above and have nice roses climbing all over it. So wouldn't make sense in a garden like this, but I think if you are fortunate enough to have a really big garden and you can put arches and pergolas in, they can look stunning if you decorate them right.
I like water.
Yeah.
I think you should always have water in a garden. It's something we don't have, whether it's a fountain, a small pond, something. I think water is really lovely and very serene to have in a garden. It's very relaxing. So if I could put something in here, it would be some form of water feature.
Water feature.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
But I love when people have water. But yeah, I'd say some form of water feature.
I think one thing I really love is it can kind of come in twofold this. I think on one hand, it's kind of like fireplaces in the garden. And I know Ash is a big fan of this, but you see how people get these nice stone, large fireplaces and mantelpieces, and they put them in their garden and it looks just really nice with a fire inside. Or some people as well, they're making sort of like pizza ovens and things out of
outdoor kitchens,
out of like natural stone. Controversially, I don't like an outdoor kitchen. I think it's really modern and really McMansion. I think you should have a kitchen that backs onto a garden, and that's where it should be. I'm not a fan of actually building like a little mini kitchen.
See, I really like an outdoor kitchen, but I think practicality-wise, in the UK, you get a week to use it a year.
It's not even.
But I quite like them.
No, I don't. I think it's fine to definitely build like a nice stone pizza oven and stuff like that. But in terms of having like shelves and cutting areas, and I'm not a fan.
Yeah, each their own. Lots of different questions about types of lavender. There are. I don't even know how many types of lavender there are.
I can think of at least 3.
What are?
So we have Hidcote.
What is Hidcote typically like? What would you say is different?
So it's an English lab. Typically, the 2 most common ones are English and French lavender, or sometimes Spanish. The English lavender is sort of, how to describe it? So it's a bit more lengthy, and the flowers are a little bit more subtle. So they're much smaller, but there's more of them close up.
Yeah, I'd say Hidcote is a darker purple, and then you have normally the ones you get at Hidcote and then Munstered. Munstered are shorter, more compact, whereas Hidcote is one that we have. It's a bit longer and a bit darker in colour. We have Hidcote lining all of the back garden, and then at the front garden we have something called, sorry, I thought my camera died then. In the front garden we have something called Lavandula intermedio grosso, which is a huge type of lavender, and the stems of the flowers are like 30-45 centimetres tall, really big, really pretty. Normally they're grown in southern France and I think Italy, Mediterranean places. But obviously at the front garden we wanted it because it's a bit more impactful, because there's not really much else in there, whereas the back garden we wanted something shorter and more compact.
Yeah. Although in fairness, because we've used lavender as a border and we want it relatively short, in hindsight we maybe should have got Munstead if it's more short and compact.
I prefer Hidcote though, because Hidcote's near where I'm from.
Yeah, my only fear is the Hidcote just becomes a little bit too hard to maintain. Like it's not shaped as sort of immaculate and it's a bit wild, whereas Munstead would be easier to keep really border. So I hope that's not another design mistake.
We'll see. Watch this video back next year and we'll see. What's your criteria for choosing what to plant in your garden? I
think we've touched on that. I think it's size, it's colour, it's making sure we stick to that English and Italian style. I think again, things that flower for a long time. There's a few exceptions, like alliums don't stick around too long and things, but generally speaking, almost everything we've got plants for at least 3 months.
Flowers for at least 3 months,
Flowers, sorry, for at least 3 months. So,
Yeah, I agree with that. Could you walk us through the basic tools needed for easy gardening? Shovel?
To be honest, we literally have about 4 tools. We do not have a big pack and set. We literally have, is it trowels, is that what they're called?
Yeah.
We literally have a set of 4. We have 2 that are just for scooping. We have 1 that's more fork. And we have 1 that's more rake. And they're generally what we use. Then we have a big rake because we get lots of droppings of bird seeds and bits from trees.
I'd say you need a good pair of secateurs.
Yes.
I always talk about the secateurs. I love the ones that cut through everything, like the automated ones.
Yeah, we have a player from Gardena that are quite good.
Really
we have
good.
one that are electric. They're usually for the more thicker things we need to cut, like hydrangeas that have much thicker branches are quite tough. And then we have a player of just manual ones that we use for deadheading, things like rose flowers and stuff. But to be honest, other than, a spade, a rake, those 4 trowels, and
you don't need a lot.
A hose and a watering can. That's pretty much it.
It's probably one of the cheapest in terms. You don't need lots of hammers, drills. You just need your hands, basically.
Don't get me wrong. I think if we had the space, we'd have a nice
shed.
We'd have a nice greenhouse, and within that there'd be a lot more stuff. But in terms of reality of what we practically need, very little.
Yeah, I actually would love it. I have a dream greenhouse.
You have a dream?
I have a dream. No, I really want that. I really want like a really old Victorian-esque, really pretty greenhouses.
We're quite similar because you want the greenhouse, and I want like. Is it an orangery? What's the edge of a house? And I'd love it to be cast iron and glass. So like your kitchen sort of goes out into it.
Yeah. If you have space in our Italian house to have a greenhouse, whether they're practical to have in Italy.
British house,
Yeah, who knows? I'm trying to find more questions.
I think one thing I'd give advice for as well is that we never touched on is smell. We were speaking about things we put in our garden and why. I think another factor that's quite important to us is smell. We want to know that when you're in the garden, you just get, lovely wafts of whatever, really. And I think one of the main things we've done is jasmine. If you know, you know, but when jasmine flowers, it's pungent and it really spreads. And obviously we've got jasmine growing around the back door all over the wall. And then we've selectively got it growing behind the seating areas as well. So that really, for about a good few weeks,
it's really beautiful, really sweet.
Really sweet. Yeah. And then we have our roses. We've made sure the David Austin ones we selected are all quite pungent in their smells as well.
Highly fragrant.
Highly fragrant.
Instead of pungent.
Pungent and waft. Not my best choice of words.
And then the lavender. We have the lavender where you'd walk past it.
Our wisteria.
Oh, the wisteria smells beautiful.
When you walked in and out of our door, I remember every day the postman would be like, oh, it smells lovely here, just because the flowers let off such a smell.
Yeah.
So really think about that as well. But don't put them in random places where you will never get to smell them. Think tactically about coming in and out of your doors, seating areas outside. That's where you should place them.
And as I was just mentioning, the lavender, when you walk past it, I like to brush past it and it gives you like a release of a lavender smell, which is really beautiful.
While Ash is looking at more questions, I think one more thing I'd encourage you to do as well is try and plant things that are bird friendly as well. We have an abundance of birds around here. We're actually very lucky that most days, unusually with exception to now, you just hear birds tweeting all day, every day. It's so nice. So we've made sure that we've planted things that, especially over winter, give them food. So if you look at the holly trees behind us, they grow little red berries throughout a bit in summer, but then also throughout winter, which provides food for all the birds. So when we come out in the winter, we see them all on the trees picking away at the berries. What else have we put
I think the Verbena bonariensis, that's good for, I think the birds eat, I'm not sure what time of year they eat that, but I know they do.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of verbena.
We do have a lot of verbena.
At the back of the borders, because verbena grows so tall.
Yeah.
I mean, please do put verbena in your gardens. It's stunning and it flowers for so long. But they need to go at the back because they really do become scraggly.
I'd say mostly everything else is for insects. We have a lot of pollinator-friendly plants.
Yes, very bee-friendly garden as well.
But it is important to feed the birds.
Yeah, we have a bird house and we put feed out as well. But just even if you just 1 or 2 trees, something that just gives a bit of food.
Lots of questions about what type of soil do you have. I would actually say when I was doing a lot of research on the garden, I was listening to every single gardener, and they all say, don't plant any plants or don't pick any plants until you know what type of soil you have. And I would say I disagree with that. Maybe I'm not an expert and it's really bad advice, but this house, we basically just had rubble.
Yeah.
We had no soil. All the soil we've put in is basically through
we had a very sandy soil.
It was sandy, but only because it was rubble. It was very poor in nutrients. It was basically not soil. It was just rubble. We had so many bricks, lots of debris from like previous buildings and stuff. Yeah. I don't know, but I'd say maybe it's because we've replaced all the soil. Everything does quite well here.
Yeah, I think we have gone very deep. We've taken out lots of top layers of old soil, and then we put down new topsoil and compost and things. So I think it does matter. I don't know the ins and outs, but I think generally speaking, if things don't really grow that well in your garden, the chances are your soil isn't great. And me personally, I would probably just start digging.
That's what I mean. You can improve your soil,
and then I'd be setting a whole new batch in there. But it's like you said, like your mum in the Cotswolds.
She has very clay.
She has like clay soil and things struggle there. Whereas here, anything I put in grows.
Yeah. We're quite lucky actually. But I think
Nothing's died.
No. I mean, only from me underwatering things, but...
Yeah. Another thing as well, just because Ash is still looking at questions, is a question I got, not from here, but separately, which is, I love your garden. I can see everything you've got, and I know how much watering it must require.
Yeah.
And it does need a lot of watering in the summer. And we travel a fair amount. And they logically said to me, like, how does your garden not die when you go away for 2 weeks? Most of us don't really want to bother someone asking them to come in and water their garden for you. And it's a thing that concerns me. So we're actually going to be putting in an irrigation system. A lot of people think they're for like big gardens and really complex. You get ones that are so simple that you literally just plug into your tap, you set like a time of day, and then when it hits that time of day, if your tap's on, it just releases the water. So we are going to be putting one of them in because we've got a lot of trips this year. I mean, blimey, we're going to...
We've not even talked about it.
No,
going to Tuscany. Oh, well, you're going to Portugal first.
Going to Portugal, then we're going to Tuscany for 2 weeks, then we're going to Cannes and Nice in the south of France, and then later in the year we're going to Buenos Aires in Argentina. So, and Barcelona.
I'm going to say lots of trips for me to film.
We're going away a lot, which will take you with us, but that does make me nervous about the garden. So an irrigation system is going to be essential because things especially like hydrangeas, which is just 1 day in the sun, because they like more partial shade, 1 day they're already drooping. Give it 2-3 days not watering, they're dead. So that'll be an interesting task.
Yeah, and it's also not as expensive as you'd probably imagine as well. It's quite affordable. I've got lots of questions about the fencing, about would we replace it with brick? My dream is to have a walled garden, as is most people's. The cost of brick is absolutely extortionate, so that will not be happening.
Yeah, it's also just the cost and
so
the labour.
Expensive.
I mean, firstly, we remember that these are houses in London. They're not houses in the countryside with big brick walls. So we have to be realistic about, equally, this is not our forever home.
Yeah.
We're not planning to stay here forever, so it doesn't make sense to do some of these more cosmetic things. But the bricks that our houses are made from, these sort of London yellow bricks, they're about £1.50 a brick. You'd need at least 2 bricks wide, and then you'd probably need like 10 up, right? So you'd be looking at thousands just for the bricks, and then the labor on top of that, you'd be looking at more. So nice idea, but not practical.
But the answer to that is I am looking to get the fences replaced, but even fences are very expensive, and it's just one of those things I don't really know if I want to pay for. Yeah, I just don't know whether it's worth it. Our fences are, they're okay, but they're just very short.
Yeah, they're not the most decorative. They're not the nicest, and we'd love to replace them. But just the cost of fencing alone is, I don't know. We're just kind of questioning, like, do we really go to are there other things we could spend that money on that is more important?
Yeah. Are plants expensive in England? It's very beautiful.
Are plants expensive in England? I would say no. I would say on average, plants tend to range between £5 and £15 at a sort of small and medium size. Of course, if you buy them a lot more mature, you're maybe looking sort of between 20 and 50.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, plants are incredibly affordable in the UK.
It depends what plants. If you're looking at sort of perennials, then I'd agree with you.
Everything.
Well, no, trees, for example, are very expensive. I mean, it is.
No.
Oh.
No. Like, obviously, yes, mature trees are going to cost, but plants, which is small things, are not expensive. I think the UK is actually very affordable.
Yeah, and also do your research in terms of, there's lots of different nurseries, lots of different websites. There's markets, plant markets you can buy plants from. So there's not really any excuse to not buy cheap plants.
Just get good at taking cuttings as well, or growing your own seedlings and things like this. Seems like a lot of work, but you'll save a hell of a lot of money if you have a beautiful rose or a beautiful hydrangea, take some cuttings, plant them, and then you have another one.
Yeah. What inspired your design and direct precedence? It's a very nice question.
This was all you, so
I would say, sorry, the sun's gone away now, so I can take those out. I would say I've always loved formal gardens.
Yeah.
So that's where the formality of this garden comes from. But then I also do love cottage gardens. I say this all the time.
Yeah.
So I do love the mix of having like roses, lots of like messy things, lots of scraggly things, because I think that's where the charm comes from in a garden.
Yeah.
But then I do think I like having structure. Not in every sense.
Sure you do.
But I like the structure of like straight lines. I think inside you can tell that as well. I like lots of straight lines and lots of squares. But then I think to break that up, we had the circle in the middle. So it's a lot of formal lines, but then it's a lot of curves. I don't know. I just really like the mixture of formal and cottage gardens. They're my two things.
To be honest, I think you've achieved it, because when you look at most formal gardens, they're not packed full of things.
No.
They're often quite open inside. You know, there's some roses and things, but there tends to be a lot of sort of white space around.
Yeah.
Whereas what we've done here, English country gardens, is usually about an abundance of things all sort of wildly pouring out together.
Yeah.
So we've designed it formal in terms of its shape, its structure, the paving, etc. But in terms of the planting itself, it's very English country.
I would say it is as well, but there is a formality in the way we've planted things. So everything is symmetrical. So on every side, you have the same layout in the borders. We start with the lavenders, you have the the yew balls at the end. Yeah. You then have like the cages for the roses, and it's all repeated in the same way. So even though it looks relatively cottage garden-esque, it is still formal in my eyes.
Yeah, that's fair.
And also another thing with formal gardens is there's lots of topiaries. So usually you just have lots of the same thing. So just yew balls shaped. Yew pines shaped like in the triangular pyramid structures. And I think that can look really beautiful, but I wouldn't do that unless I had the space to do that, because I like lots of pretty flowers.
Yeah.
But there's lots of different inspiration for gardens. Chelsea, we're going to go to Chelsea in a few weeks' time, Chelsea Flower Show.
We are going to the Chelsea Flower Show.
Which should be really interesting in terms of inspiration, and hopefully buying lots of, I don't even know if they sell plants.
We've never been, have we? So
no, I'm actually really, if you guys are going, let us know. We might see you there.
Might see you there.
But yeah, I'd say obviously everyone's design is different. Everyone's preferences are different. But I think we've done quite a good job in this little small garden like this.
Yeah. Fun fact, you got included, the Metro, the newspaper in the UK, they did an article like the top 10 their top 10 favourite gardens in the UK. And this was featured.
Yeah.
Which is also coincidentally how Ash got a blue tick on Instagram.
Yeah.
Because they saw the news article. So yeah, it's glad others agree, because we love this garden.
Yeah.
And it's not to everyone's taste.
I think some people think it's a bit too much.
Yeah.
And I get that. I think it does look a bit too much online, but I think in person it doesn't.
The thing is, it doesn't look too much. I just think that the quality and standards are not what they used to be. And now when people sort of do gardens to this style, it's considered too much.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's not. This is what gardens should look like.
Yeah.
So I want to, if someone says to me, oh, it's too much, I know it's perfect.
Yeah.
When I hear that, because gardens just should be an abundance.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point?
It's basically the second part of your home, right? For there's not many places you will lounge, right? You'll have your lounge inside, and you make that really snug and nice. And then in the spring, summer months, your garden often becomes the lounge area.
And your dining room.
The only thing I would... Sorry, the sun keeps coming and going. The only thing I would love to have is a bit more comfortable seating. I get why we've done this, because when we're hosting friends and stuff, we want everyone to have a seat, but I really wanted an L-shaped. Now, I know
I'm just not a fan of them.
I know they don't often look very nice.
No.
I was hoping you could get one in this style,
No.
but just something where you can actually lie down and sunbathe, and you can't really do that here. And while I love coming out, it's not the most
comfortable.
relaxing.
These are comfy chairs, but in terms of like putting your feet up and sunbathing, for example. Let me ask you a question then. If you could do one thing differently in this garden, what would you do? I won't take it as an insult.
No, if I'm honest with you, I think in hindsight, we probably should have stuck with our original design
Really?
of having a little path
Like a zigzaggy
that
path.
zigzagged, and we'd have lots in it. So you wouldn't see the back of the garden. You'd have to walk through.
Yeah.
This probably means nothing to you guys. Maybe we can find an old design of how we did it, and Ash can pop it in. But I think just instead of the straight path circle, maybe it would have been a little bit more interesting.
Yeah. I think I would also say the layout of the garden. So what I'd probably do is make this bit at the back probably twice the size.
Yeah.
and then have some form of path, whether it be like you just said, or like a little straight path, but then
left,
this
yeah.
be the entertaining area. And you touched on it earlier, I'd have a massive fireplace where we're sat now as the central focus point looking down.
Yeah.
And then you could all sort of congregate around. I still have these style chairs with a coffee table, and I think it would look really lovely and really sort of Italianate.
I do agree. I do think in hindsight, we opted for more bedding
Yeah.
than.
And I don't regret that.
I do. I
No.
think we should have gone another 3 or 4 tiles. I think we could have reduced the size down there, the door, and kept more here. Because
Yeah.
when we do have more than like 4 people around, it is a bit
It's a
crammed.
squeeze, yeah.
But it's also just, it's a London garden. Like you don't have an abundance of space, and
Yeah.
I think no matter how we did it, there'd be
No, we always say this, that whatever you do, you'd always want to change it. So
yeah.
we wouldn't change it for the world. We love our garden. Okay, quick fire. Paint for your fence. Cuprinol, natural stone.
Yes. How do you feed your roses for blooming? We use Uncle Tom's Rose Tonic. It's the best I've ever used. I highly recommend it. You get it on Amazon.
Yep. Favorite spring summer flower. We're literally grandmas. I hope you guys enjoyed this.
I'll have to go with a rose.
Yeah.
I just don't think you can beat a rose.
I think that was mine. Well, specifically what rose?
Honestly, any David Austin rose.
Okay, fair enough.
I think just the shapes and structures they do are impeccable, but probably color-wise white. I am a white rose person.
Okay, I'm a pink rose person, so we'll go definitely pink rose.
How do you combat rodents? Someone asked. These are just quick fire questions. I think I mentioned it already. The main issue we have in this garden are snails and slugs.
Rodents is like rats, though. Pests is snails.
Oh, well, we don't get that.
We don't get that.
I'll talk about snails and slugs. We basically have pellets. You get them at any garden centre. We just build a border around all the things we know snails and slugs eat. They're a big problem in our garden, and that's been keeping them at bay. And then in terms of roses, you get the little green bugs all
Aphids,
over. Yeah, we just have a spray. I don't even remember what it's called. But
we haven't used that spray this year, though, because I've heard it's...
I did.
Oh, I was going to say, I've heard it's not very good for the environment.
Oh, well, I used it.
But typically, I think ladybugs eat aphids, so you're meant to, and small birds, so I think you're meant to leave them and then they'll sort themselves out.
We did have a frog in this garden.
Don't know where it's gone.
We don't know where it's gone. Now, basically, we didn't buy a frog. We bought that thing, that
urn, the middle like urn plant
from Dobby's, and a frog was in it when we got back and emptied it, and the frog went in the garden, and I wasn't too fussed. I was like, oh, okay. I was trying to get it to take it somewhere safer, but I couldn't get it. And frogs are really good for eating snails and slugs, but we haven't seen it in about 2 years, so RIP.
But every time we say that, we'll see it the next day. Size of your lounge, size of your garden, I don't know how, I'd say like 5 meters by 20 meters.
Bit more than 5 wide, I'd say.
30 meters? No, it's not.
No?
No, I'd say it's not big.
Well, I say it's not big, but it's a good size.
It's a good size for a London garden as well.
Most people we see in London who we go in their houses, they have smaller gardens.
Yeah, we're very lucky.
So we'll take it.
How you planted and fixed your wisteria and the aspect of the front back garden too, please. Aspect is north facing. I think that's what that means.
Yeah, the wisteria on the front is south facing.
Yeah, and also wisteria we fixed ours with, all of our climbing plants are fixed with plant supports. I don't know what they're called specifically.
Yeah, they're
tension-wise and tension rods.
Yeah, they're on Amazon. They're about £10. And it comes with a wire, the stretchy hooks on the sides. So we just drill it into the wall.
Yeah, but every climbing plant you'll see anywhere is supported by something. So don't think of this myth that everything's just clinging onto the wall. Unless it's ivy and has aerial roots, everything else needs support. So you need to put plant supports on the wall.
Yeah.
Also, the jasmine does best on a trellis. We haven't got a trellis on the back. We've just got plant supports, but I think I might add a trellis because it can sort of tangle itself in.
Yeah.
But everything else is just on plant supports. I think that's enough.
That's pretty much it.
I think we've answered all of your questions. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. We are going to go inside now because the clouds are going.
The weather's turning.
The weather is turning. But yeah, if you have any other questions that we seem to have missed, then
let us know.
Let us know. We'll try and answer them.
And I think we will move on from the garden now. I appreciate
there is a lot of garden,
We've done quite a bit of garden content lately, so we have some more projects we're working on. Obviously, the kitchen, Ash mentioned, there's a bit of a delay there with the tiles from the walls, so that's kind of part. The bedroom we've just done, but I think we're maybe thinking about the lounge. We have a new sofa coming soon. We're thinking about switching up the pink colour in the lounge. And
something quite interesting as well.
for something interesting, and we have to think about the fireplaces
Yep.
in the lounge and the dining room, what kind of stone and tile and things we want in there. So there's don't worry, it's not all going to be garden for the whole summer. And then of course, in a few weeks, we're off to Tuscany for 2 weeks in the villa. So we have a remote farmhouse just to ourselves in the middle of nowhere. So
I'm actually really excited to show everyone that.
we're going to take you to Siena, Montepulciano, Arezzo. We're going to take you to vineyards. You're going to love it.
And there we have it, guys. I think I'm going to end the video here. Hopefully you've enjoyed this one. It's been very garden heavy, but I think as we're heading into summer, hopefully this has answered some questions of yours, and hopefully it's going to get you inspired and out into the garden. As always, please leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. I shall see you guys next week for another video on Sunday. Have a lovely week, and I shall see you very soon.